When Trish Regan was let go by Fox Business because of her controversial take on the coronavirus pandemic in 2020, a number of people felt she was responsible for the way things ended. For them, she had crossed the line, and her bosses had no choice but to issue a strong response. Fast forward 5 years later, and Regan is still very active in the media industry and, to her credit, has kept her voice as relevant as possible as a podcaster. However, beyond her well-known public persona, there is a version of Trish Regan that many people are not aware of. Join us as we expose the untold truth of Trish Regan. For one, there are those who had no idea that Regan was born Patricia Ann Regan and participated in pageantries when she was younger. While growing up in New Hampshire, Regan spent some of her teenage summers waiting and bussing tables in other areas within New England. She was so proud of where she was born that she felt honored to have won the Miss New Hampshire and to get the opportunity to represent her home state in the Miss America 1994 pageant. In one interview, she talked about how much work she had to put in during this part of her life. She said, "Competing in pageants is about more than just looking pretty. You have to be able to relate to lots of different people. You have to be able to think on your feet, and those are skills you learn in a pageant. Walking in high heels and a swimsuit is a skill unto itself, and one I don't miss." Regan didn't win Miss USA 1994, but she won a special award for her operatic performance, which is probably a surprise to many devoted fans who had no idea that their favorite podcaster had this incredible singing ability. Regan was actually so good at singing that she was confident of becoming a professional artist. She dedicated her life to studying voice in Graz, Austria, and at the New England Conservatory of Music in Boston. But fate had other plans. Beyond singing, Regan had always known she had a knack for journalism and was pretty good with numbers too. She had taken to journalism when she was in 5th grade, loving everything that had to do with reporting and writing. She even held the position of school correspondent for her local New Hampshire newspaper. But while it was clear enough that Regan was passionate about journalism, it was only after her program was concluded at the New England Conservatory of Music in Boston that she proceeded to Columbia University to study history. Another surprising fact about Regan is that while she studied, she decided to pursue a career in finance and worked as an analyst in emerging debt markets at Goldman Sachs. Her ability to speak Spanish opened opportunities for her in the Latin American sovereign debt markets, so she focused primarily on Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, and Venezuela. But all that changed when Bloomberg Television offered her an opportunity to work as a correspondent. Seeing the chance to combine her financial literacy with journalism, Regan made the jump into financial reporting without thinking twice. Starting at Bloomberg in 2000, she was on the front lines as the dot-com bubble burst. She covered its aftermath from Silicon Valley and San Francisco as a correspondent at MarketWatch before moving back to New York to work as a correspondent for CBS News. At CBS MarketWatch, Regan was a business correspondent reporting for the CBS Evening News. She also contributed to Face the Nation and 48 Hours. While she was still working at CBS News, Regan doubled as a correspondent for CBS Money Watch. In 2002, she earned the Most Outstanding Young Broadcast Journalist Award from the Northern California Society of Professional Journalists for her work there. 4 years later, Regan returned to her financial roots as an anchor on CNBC's top-rated daily markets program, The Call. Her exposé on the terror connection between the tri-border region of South America and Islamic terrorist groups earned her an Emmy nomination for investigative reporting in 2007. Regan also got a Gerald Loeb nomination for her documentary work on Against the Tide, The Battle for New Orleans, an investigative piece on the New Orleans levee system after Hurricane Katrina. During her stint at CNBC, Regan also reported business news for NBC's nightly news and The Today Show. She reported on the 2008 financial crisis in real time. In addition, she produced and hosted the two most highly rated documentaries in CNBC's history, Marijuana Inc. and Marijuana USA, which investigated a huge and fast-developing underground industry. She would later publish her book, Joint Ventures, Inside America's Almost Legal Marijuana Industry, where she predicted that the industry would soon become mainstream. That was in 2010. To be honest, Regan was such an asset during this period of the 2010s that it wasn't shocking that she still had an ongoing relationship with the media companies that she worked with earlier in her career. For example, she was still working with Bloomberg Television by 2015, hosting the daily global market show Street Smart with Trish Regan. However, there are those who don't know that Regan's career really took off in 2015 when she joined Fox News and Fox Business to anchor the Intelligence Report with Trish Regan weekdays. And with this exposure came controversies. Just 2 years after she joined Fox, there were reports that Regan had been handpicked by Fox News then-boss Roger Ailes to replace Megyn Kelly, who had left the network because, according to her, primetime cable news was a snake pit. After Kelly's departure, many expected her slot to be taken up by the next female anchor, and with the initial suggestion that Regan's onboarding had happened for this sole purpose, everyone thought she was a shoo-in. But to everyone's shock, Roger Ailes had resigned after getting hit with numerous sexual misconduct allegations months before Kelly left. He was no longer moving any pieces on the board. The network eventually made the decision to tuck Tucker Carlson Tonight into Kelly's vacant time slot. There were those who believed that if Roger Ailes was still in control, Regan would have taken up Kelly's primetime 9 p.m. time slot. Regan quickly moved on from that disappointment and, a year later, switched to a traditional conservative talk format for a new primetime show titled Trish Regan Primetime. This was a step in the direction of more journalistic control. Regan was pulling up a seat for herself on the high table for heavier matters. Unfortunately, Regan sniffed around the wrong den and marked the wrong opponent. She hosted the Fox Business segment, entitled Something Rotten in Denmark. In the segment, she likened Denmark to Venezuela, a country that was deep in political turmoil and whose economy was sitting and surrounded by kegs of gunpowder. In her words, Denmark, like Venezuela, has stripped people of their opportunities. She described what she believed was rotten in the Scandinavian country. Starting with the high taxes the area is famous for, she opined that Denmark's freebies were anything but free. She stated, "No one wants to work." She wasn't surprised this was the case, given that the Danes were paid stipends to attend university, and in her opinion, this was an incentive for laziness. Regan added that when the Danes did eventually graduate, all they wanted to start were cupcake cafes. This was her warning about the dangers of socialism. As you would expect, Denmark didn't see it that way. For them, this wasn't a constructive criticism of their beloved country, and therefore, they needed to respond with the facts and figures. Denmark's Social Democrats decided to release a video response entitled Something is Rotten at Fox News to disprove everything Regan had said about welfare, school, and employment. This clapback was soon followed by a tirade of stats that compared Denmark and the US in terms of economic stability and growth. Then Danish Finance Minister Kristian Jensen even said Regan should come to Denmark if she dared to be confronted with facts, and pointed out that Denmark was 11 places higher than the US in OECD rankings for employment rates. Unfortunately for Regan, fellow Americans who disagreed with her conservatism poured gas into the fire, and her own fans found it difficult to defend her, as it was her journalistic integrity that was called into question. After her remarks were criticized in the US and Danish press, many expected her to issue an apology since it was clearly on her if she didn't get her facts right. Instead, Regan attempted to clarify her remarks, saying, "Just to be clear, I was never implying that conditions in Denmark were similar in any way to the current tragedy on the ground there in Venezuela. Then she added, "I was merely pointing out, using reports from The Atlantic, The Independent, and other publications, that socialism is not the way." Calling out these sources didn't win her any favors, as they quickly defended and distanced themselves from the controversies by stating, "Our articles do not show that socialism does not definitively work." This backlash from within and without was quite loud, but Regan kept her job for the next 2 years. The coronavirus pandemic was a challenging time for many people around the world. As many dealt with the loss of loved ones, almost everyone felt the economic repercussions of restricted movement. At the beginning of March 2020, when early cases were being detected across the world, no one foresaw the catastrophe that was about to unfold. Least of all, Regan. As cases were increasing in the US, Regan went on air on the 9th of March to deliver her expert commentary on the issue plaguing the country at the moment. Regan's headline segment was entitled, "Coronavirus Impeachment Scam." She said, "The chorus of hate being leveled at the president is nearing a crescendo as Democrats blame him, and only him, for a virus that originated halfway around the world. This is yet another attempt to impeach the president, and sadly, it seems they care very little for any of the destruction they are leaving in their wake." Regan repeated, "This is impeachment all over again." She went on to accuse the liberal media of using the COVID-19 outbreak to demonize and destroy the president. Regan didn't stop there. She added, "People, including the media and some investors, are allowing their own hate and their own bias against him to spiral out of control." These comments didn't sit well with viewers. In fact, many healthcare professionals and lawmakers were furious about it. According to one lawmaker who stated that COVID-19 shouldn't be a political issue, added that Regan's commentary was the height of irresponsibility. In the days that followed, global markets nosedived as fears over the economic impact of the coronavirus, coupled with plunging oil prices, sparked investor panic. The cases of the virus in the US increased dramatically just as it was spreading in other parts of the world. This wasn't good news for anyone, especially Fox News and the Fox Business Network, which came under fire as the days progressed for how its top hosts and personalities initially covered the coronavirus pandemic. The network downplayed the coronavirus, and like Regan, the angle other hosts leaned towards was that the virus was aimed at hurting the president politically. Critics of the network pointed out that the network's dismissive nature was even more problematic when you realize that the viewers who make up the network's audience were older folks who were more vulnerable to the disease. Before the end of that month, Regan's segment had received so much backlash, Fox Network decided it was necessary to place her show, Trish Regan Primetime, on a temporary hiatus. Widespread criticism only worsened, and the network eventually removed her show from its lineup. They removed others, including Kennedy, followed by FBN AM and Bulls and Bears, in the week that followed. Unfortunately for Regan, the repercussions didn't stop here. The network went a step further and ended its relationship with her. Their statement read, "We thank her for her contributions to the network over the years and wish her continued success in her future endeavors. We will continue our reduced live primetime schedule for the foreseeable future in an effort to allocate staff resources to continuous breaking news coverage on the coronavirus crisis." She responded to her termination in this statement, "I have enjoyed my time at FOX and now intend to focus on my family during these troubled times. I am grateful to my incredible team at Fox Business and for the many opportunities the network has provided me. I'm looking forward to this next chapter in my career." And that was the end of Trish Regan at Fox. However, it was the beginning of Trish Regan, the podcaster. She had seen the opportunities the internet provided for anyone who was willing to do the work and build a following. Luckily for her, she was already a well-known face with her own loyal following. So following her dismissal from the big networks, Regan reappeared in 2021 with her own podcast, The Trish Regan Show. She owned Tarm Holdings, the multimedia company that produces it. With over 1.1 million followers on YouTube alone, tens of millions of views per month, Regan has transformed herself from a former Fox employee to a media powerhouse. Her podcast is literally one of YouTube's top 100 podcasts. If you wonder if her narratives have changed, her about page states, through her daily news show, Trish delivers fearless, common-sense conservative analysis. Live on YouTube every weekday with a clear focus on free speech, economic liberty, national security, and your financial future. In addition to all she has achieved, Regan is an executive editor at the monthly online magazine, American Consequences, and also the co-founder and executive editor of 76research.com, which is an independent financial research firm providing market intelligence for investors. In her personal life, Regan has been married to her spouse, James Ben, since 2001, and the marriage has celebrated the birth of their 3 children, Elizabeth, Jamie, and Alexandra. Even as a mother of 3, Regan has admitted it was initially tough to strike the right work-life balance, but she is proud to say she has found a way to make it all work. She revealed there were days she had to take one of the kids to work with her, and she often takes one of them along when she has to travel for business, which very impressive that she still has her hands on the pulse of the family despite the extremely busy nature of trying to keep up with trends and the unstable constitution of the financial market. In 2025, 53-year-old Regan continues her work as a prominent conservative commentator, hosting The Trish Regan Show podcast, where she provides analysis on politics and economics. The podcast is available on platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. She also functions as a sought-after keynote speaker for events, focusing on fiscal monetary policy, and maintains an active presence through her media appearances and publications, offering sharp, independent commentary. To devoted fans, Regan is the true definition of resilience, to be unbroken no matter how many curved balls life swings at you. And if you picked up the phone and call in some of those hits yourself, well, you should also get back on your feet and keep moving forward. Even Regan's staunchest antagonists would commend her doggedness. Apparently, when she was talking about how important it was to be tenacious during her early days in pageantry, she wasn't kidding about being able to think on your feet.